This is the second in a series of 4 videos where I share my story of being systematically harassed by the Government of Barbados through community policing overreach and the abuse of informant networks. Now, in the weeks prior to my resignation from my job, I was experiencing workplace mobbing that seemed to go to unnecessary extremes to create an uncomfortable atmosphere for me at work. This didn't include every single coworker, but many did participate, including management and even some customers as well. Every day, the same silent tactics. Coworkers making synchronized gestures with their phones, and also hinting at the accusation being child abuse through directed conversations. And this was in combination with things like placing drawings and posters around the office, turning up brass tacks just in time for discussions about child abuse, and so on. It made me wonder, what was all this about? Did somebody say I abuse my daughter? I know that I wasn't the best off financially and certainly couldn't do my best all the time, but child abuse? Really? Since my daughter's father left the country, I was trying to do more, as he wouldn't have been there to do the range of things that he used to do, which included dropping her to school and picking her up from school, or taking her to drive around to different places, or paying for clubs or the different types of activities she loved doing. Since he left, his parents were ready to take the lead in his absence, willing to step in to do all the things he used to do and more. And I was sidelined like I was more of a nuisance than a parent. And honestly, around that time, it was coming across like the entire world perceived me to be some kind of nuisance. Now, I can't say that I was a remarkable parent either. Aside from genuine intent, I felt constant guilt for never having the finances or sometimes even the energy to plan and execute activities in the way that her dad and his family did. Still, I tried to take some modicum of control by telling her grandparents that I wanted to take her to school in alternate weeks. I made up my mind that I would leave home early and take her to school via public transport, though I still relied on her grandparents on her father's side to pick her up from school. Every single day when I took her to school, people would be coordinated everywhere I went, made efficient by the fact that I had a routine that could be timed with reasonable accuracy. I would catch a van with my daughter, get off in town, and then walk with her to the Cheapside bus terminal. There, I would place her in a van as part of the last leg of her trip to school. But even then, I started noticing men getting in and sitting either right next to her or directly behind and in front of her, doing the same damn gestures. For the first time, I had to stop to think about how this situation might affect her. At that time, I was still trying to figure out what the whole thing was about, and I couldn't rule out that it was something nefarious. That's when it really hit me. I couldn't protect her from whatever this thing is, not just because I didn't have the tools like a car, more finances, and so on, but because I knew that this thing was way bigger than me. At that point, I decided that Pushing to keep taking her to school on my own was selfish and dangerous since I could not be sure what the motivations of these people were. I asked her grandparents if they were willing to take over the responsibility, and of course, they said yes. They even offered to give me a ride to work as well. However, I noticed that whenever her grandfather in particular showed up to give me a ride, he would partake in the same shenanigans. I still wondered if the issue was about some alleged instance of child abuse, but that didn't explain why nobody had told me anything. I even called and asked her father about it, and he said that he didn't know what I was talking about. Then I thought, well, if the accusation is something else, still, why hasn't anyone told me anything? What is this punishment for? I was tired of being harassed with no answers, especially at work. And by June 2023, I officially resigned from my job. Now, as a naturally introspective person, I also questioned my fitness as a parent. Before the mobbing started, I was mediocre at best. Now, after the mobbing, I wasn't sure what to do. I began to contemplate in my heart whether I was being selfish by trying to hold on to her in a situation where most of society had seemed to be aiming at me and treating me as radioactive. My daughter was 8 years old at the time, hardly starting out in life and with so much potential ahead of her. Would she deserve a life being shunned and condemned as I was? My research into what was going on led me to first encounter the disinformation term gang stalking, which, despite being a disinformation term, still helped to point me in the right direction on what to research and look into further. I found out that history has a long list of denunciation systems, and that in East Germany in particular, they enacted something called Zersetzung tactics on innocent civilians, those who had been denounced by someone, usually anonymously. I learned that since 9/11, dozens of countries around the world had been pushing a See Something, Say Something campaign, asking citizens to come together for the good of all and to help law enforcement by becoming the eyes and ears of the state. I also learned that concurrently, intelligence-led policing is now the preferred methodology by police across the world. And with that, there's also an increase in police forces leaning on informants to get this information. They rely on the See Something, Say Something campaign to expand their network of civilian informants. And it is clear that in the near future, if it hasn't happened already, we will have the infrastructure for a modern, almost perfect denunciation system firmly in place. And I say perfect because, unlike previous regimes, this one will be supported by advanced technology. There has also been an increase of people around the world coming forward about the abuse of power by the state, particularly in regards to the use of citizens and informant networks to monitor and surveil them.
These groups of people, literally every time I step out, following me around, and everywhere I go, grocery shopping. When I used to go certain places with my children, take them, certain places, whatever, museums, whatever, wherever it was. And even when I would go to Warner Robins, and I remember traveling to Atlanta at one point, and the same thing happened. I went to New Orleans at one point, and the same thing happened. So I'm like, and I've been like, certain people are being sent to me, and they're telling me you need to move, like trying to scare me. and put fear into me. Like, I'm like, what the hell is going on here? Even if I do move, whatever that's going on right now is still going to go on. Like, why should I move? I'm not moving out of here because I went to New Orleans and the same thing still happened. I went to Atlanta and the same. So anywhere I go, probably the same things are going to happen. So why not be here and battle whatever this secret monster is?
So for those of you who are unaware, in 2018, I made 2 videos letting you guys know about the experiences that I was having with systematic harassment. So specifically the blacklisting and employment issues that I was experiencing. And unfortunately, I'm still experiencing the same issues today. I don't want to make these issues public, but unfortunately, it's necessary in light of the harassers carrying out acts of violence against me and cutting off my ability to earn an income.
And this would happen alongside oppressive tactics that mirror the Stasi's Surseksung. All this being facilitated by the state and the police, with the police having the power to establish an informal investigation against nearly anyone, rally the community against that person, and maintain a perpetual loop of monitoring and harassment, since they are not obliged to inform the subject about the investigation. They also have the power to approach, warn, and if necessary, gag every single person the subject comes into contact with on a daily basis. And the different testimonies I saw from persons around the world who have been affected by this phenomenon were more and more disheartening. This harassment wasn't limited to adults. Many people out there are saying that their own children were being harassed as well.
So the reason why I left Jackson, Mississippi is because I was being gang stalked, harassed, threatened, okay, being shot at, being ran down, okay, all types of stuff. These people was doing, vandalizing my fucking vehicles and all types of stuff, y'all. Running down my mailbox, all types of stuff, okay? Harassing my children at school, all types of stuff. I'm going to do a little rundown real quick because we're going to probably do like different story times for the different situations, but the little rundown. Do y'all know somebody called the school pretending to be me, asking to speak to my son? They called the school and asked to speak to my son pretending to be me. Doing shit like that. Doing different things, okay? Yeah. People using their children, people using their grandchildren, all to accomplish an agenda. So I'm here where I'm at now, right? Y'all tell me why these motherfuckers is gang stalking again, harassing again, and I'm in a whole nother different state. These people all ganged up against me to paint me out to be crazy, deranged, schizophrenic. I ain't never heard nobody use that term. People have said a lot about me, but I ain't never heard no damn schizophrenic.
Some people had to withdraw their children from school and homeschool them due to the harassment. Others lost their child to suicide. Some people have their pets viciously killed, and many people are enduring torture through all kinds of peripheral coordinated activities meant not just to harass, but to eventually neutralize, to kill.
The goal is literally to isolate the person, make them destitute and financially unstable to the point where they can't take care of themselves. Many targeted individuals live in homeless shelters and on the street. The most common experience that you'll hear is, and why the term gang stalking comes about, is because they'll have people follow you around. Whenever you go into public places, like if you're driving on the street, people in cars will follow you around and they make themselves very known that they're there and they are present and they are looking at you. If you go any public place, like going shopping or anything like that, they'll follow you around the stores. And as sick as this may sound, I've even had stalkers follow me into church while I was in Las Cruces and in Houston. I've had stalkers follow me into church. It's literally to keep the targeted individual agitated, stressed out, and never really have their mind at ease, to make them paranoid. They basically try to convince your family, your friends, your neighbors, your coworkers that they should be keeping an eye on you for whatever reason. They do this. Some of them they pay off to keep an eye on you, to look at you in strange ways. They do this through blackmail. They'll blackmail individuals into stalking you and harassing you, looking at you. And they do this to people who actually are real criminals. Targeted individuals are typically just regular Joes, everyday, ordinary, innocent people. And somehow we've ended up on this ungodly, evil list of people who have their lives literally destroyed. Another way that they coerce everyday citizens into participating in harassing targeted individuals is that they'll tell them lies like you're under investigation for something, or you've committed a crime, or they should keep an eye on you because you're crazy. And as you can see right now, I am totally not crazy. I'm completely sane, but they've employed these tactics against me as well to try to make me appear to be a crazy person.
It's hard to imagine that average citizens can and have been weaponized by the state. Normal, everyday people who, for the most part, try to be good, moral, and upright. Yet, these same people were all participating in slow murder, each person playing their part, albeit in varying degrees and with varying levels of realization about what they're actually participating in. A few days before the end of July 2023, I had the most intense anger within me. I wasn't angry at these strangers who were participating in this harassment. I wasn't angry at my colleagues or anyone else who were participating in this harassment. I was angry at God. I said in my heart, Lord, what is this? What is the point of all of this? These people seem to have everything: money, support, opportunities, but look, here I am, not harassing anybody, and yet I cannot even provide for or protect my own daughter. I wept bitterly, and spiritually, I fell to my knees. I thought, if this is the truth of the world, why am I here? What was the purpose of the world being set up this way? Before the mobbing began, I was already struggling and battling with trying to be seen as a good mother. Not to imply that I wasn't earnestly being a good mother for the sake of it. I certainly did the best I could every step of the way with what I had. But I also wanted to be able to provide and be seen in a light that was similar to her father, who I saw as the prototype for a good parent, some kind of unattainable benchmark that I was striving to be like, despite being in a quicksand of life events, constantly derailing my efforts in all directions. Now, here I was, confronted with the realization that in order for my daughter to have a normal life, I have to not be part of it. I was faced with the reality that I will never have the chance to finally be seen as a good parent, or as a successful career woman who finally has her life together, or achieve any of the dreams I wished for in my young adult years. I had to be realistic. I knew that whatever it was that had caused people to persecute me was best left as a burden for me to bear alone. But still, I was torn. I felt in my heart that my daughter would probably resent me if her entire life is taken away before she even gets to experience life at all due to baseless persecution. But equally, she would resent me if she never heard from me again with no explanation why. In both scenarios, she will resent me. But in one scenario, she may get to live a normal life. Day and night, this was all I could think about. Coming up to the time of her trip to Scotland with her grandparents, she told me about a strange dream that she had. She said, in it, a monster swallowed her up and she saw herself going down and down into its stomach to be digested. I was alarmed, but I tried hard not to appear that way, and I asked her, what happened next? She clearly saw through me and laughed and said, don't worry, Mummy, it felt good. And that was her story. Perhaps she decided not to share the rest so I would relax. But my heart sunk to the bottom of my stomach. I thought about that too for days, right up until it was time to send her off. Then I decided that I wouldn't contact her again at all for any reason. When they did eventually return, she stayed with them, and her grandmother, on her father's side, stopped by a few times to collect the remainder of her things. And it's funny because since making that decision to separate for her safety, the theme of my harassment changed from hints of child abuse to a judgmental tone of child abandonment. It seems like they're just looking for something, anything to weaponize, because this apparatus needs a weapon of which to wield. Well, I made that decision back in 2023 for my daughter's sake, and I think about it every single day. But it still doesn't change the fact that I made a decision that she might never be able to rationalize or forgive. Surveillance state.
We are asking for an organized program for Step Up. We are asking for people to be able to recognize that with respect to all that's going on, we need a coordinated effort between the police, between the social workers and psychologists and mental health workers, with the community development workers, with the life and parental coaches that we hope to establish soon, with the youth commissioners, and with all groups across the community. Because unless Bajans step up and help claim it, you can't rely only on the law enforcement officers. Full stop. And we've been very, very clear about that.